Okay, so I had to turn the tape over and I had a little bit of a glitch and then realized that it's Joe and Frank Oreto and Uncle John's got nothing to do with it. So my bad on that. Oops. Nonetheless, here we go with side 2. And remember to like and subscribe.
And the people would come to him to buy whiskey.
Joe.
Joe Mayali. My cousin Joe Mayali.
All right.
Like I told you, there was Leonard, Joe, Frank.
These are your cousins.
Yeah, my cousins. Clara, Sparino, Gasparino. That was all of her children. Now,
All right, so now did your father have a job here in Chicago?
yeah, looking for a job.
I mean, that's what he, okay.
That's what she let him work there. But like I say, my mother.
Now, it doesn't work in the other room, Uncle
Turn
Frank.
it off until you get ready to sit down.
Joe wanted to be the big shot. Like I say, he spoke very little English, had been in the country about a month and a half.
Okay.
And so
How old was it? About.
Joe was approximately 22 years old.
Isn't it? Okay.
About 22 years old, so he's standing there, he used to wear a vest, you know. How I know he was telling me of it. And when the people wanted whiskey over there, he started a notion like he's a big shot in the whiskey business. And one day there was 2 fellas come up to him, sure. You know what he did? Sure. Over here, said, well, can you get it for us? Do you know the people? Said, sure. Cost you $2. It was a jug, $2. So he goes and gets the jug, and when he does, they arrest him.
Oh.
They were cops. He had spent a year today in jail. From then on, Frank says, go to work someplace, I'll be a shoemaker or something.
Okay, let me ask you this. While you're staying with your Aunt Catherine, do you remember, like, everybody getting together for dinner on Sunday?
Well, what it was a great deal of arguments most of the time between my Uncle Jim and my father. Because my father
Well, they didn't get
felt
along anyway.
that and Anna had no business living there. Because you know how it is. The rats come in and they want to take over the place. Then there was, we'd all eat at one table, big table with spaghetti, or bread, coffee, what have you. And we'd play right out there on the street, and there was a Polacks and the natives and all mixed. So this was in the latter part of 1923. And whenever we'd be out there playing, my father would holler, "Venica," which means come here. And we had to come. But sometimes hard-headed Frank had to be picked up with the boot and made to come. So then we were watching a Polish wedding. In a Polish wedding, they throw money, pennies and all like that. So I was picking up pennies, and then when I got the boot, so I come home. And then we all sat there and ate, and no talking. But me, singing like, and I got help again. So anyhow, about the early part of December, it snowed a great deal that year. And about the early part of December, they go to a dance. Mother loved to dance. And Pop was a pretty good dancer, and they danced. They used to love to sing to each other. Right. And then she got very ill because they walked. They said to the house, and she had been sweating and all like that. And you got to remember, she didn't have the fur coats or much of that stuff to say. And then when she picked up pneumonia, then what I recall is that many days she lay in her bed and everybody's wailing and talking like she's dead. And I recall she had a glass with about 3 or 4 leeches in it.
You're right. That's right. I recall that very vividly, even today, because I was there when she died, and she didn't die easy. She didn't want to die. And it was almost horrifying the way she would scream. But they had these leeches all over her.
Yeah.
And that was, and then she died. And that was,
Well, anyhow, then she started gasping pretty much. I recall this because I was in the room too.
Everybody in the room.
You know, they crowded around the bed. And then she and went. Now, according to my Aunt Hannah on her tape, she said, "Viva l'Italia." I don't recall that.
no, my mother died hard.
Right. So my father threw himself on the bed, Maria, Maria, you know how the wops do, and crying and wailing. And
What do you remember about your mother? What color hair did she have?
well, she had brown chestnut hair, and it was extremely long.
Yeah.
It kind of reached down to her butt,
Like you see that in that picture.
and most of the time she wore it up in the bun, like the most Italians did. In those days, the crowning glory was hair, see, and
Was she a strong woman? I mean,
very
did she?
sickly.
Not necessarily constitutionally. Did she argue with your father? Did
No,
she
very
do everything he said?
Very quiet, very obedient, and
A woman of her generation,
Yeah,
right?
right. And love.
15 years ago.
yeah, well, she loved him pretty much, you know. And my
Well,
early,
she looks like a beautiful woman from a
She was
photograph.
a very beautiful woman because I remember her laying in a casket. I wanted to get a fig, and the figs used to hang, you know, with that string. And she's laying in the casket with her hands like this with a cross in her hand.
She was at home, of course.
Yeah, in this cold room. And the long hair is right alongside her body like that. Never forgot that. And I couldn't sleep for months.
Right,
You know what I mean? Just for the
I don't
things.
remember that part.
Well, I do. So I can't remember too vividly, but
Right.
anyhow, but I recall when I was 2 or 3, you asked what sort of a woman she was. She was a very compassionate woman. And I'll never forget that we went to the grocery store and we had a bunch of paper bags and paper wrappings and you know, we were kids and we loved to tear them open and then she said, "Pick up the paper, Joe and Frankie." You know, pick up the paper. Well, Joe and Leonard left somewhere. I don't know where the hell they went. This was on Canal Street. And I, you know, with the lip, pouted. And my father whacked me with a razor strap that wouldn't stop. And I can remember being under that table picking up the paper, you know what I mean? Then the next time I remember that same house, right by the door, we had a sewing machine, old secret, with the bobbin, straight bobbin. And we used to use that every Christmas for the Christmas gifts, something to go on. We put a bag with our name on top of it, and then when we come down in the morning, had oranges and a piece of candy, no toys, because my father, I forgot what he was doing at that time.
He was probably sweeping the streets because
I think he was still working. Like you say, I think he was. There was a lot of horse.
well, he like he told me at one time. He says about just to buy milk. You know, there wasn't this welfare that you can go around and get things. But
It wasn't later. It was later.
but he'd take anything, you know, anything at all.
To do the.
But to get back on Canal Street and him, as I recall, when my brother Johnny was born, there used to be a farmer's market down where the museums are up in that area. And
That's
I
the
was
old Central Market.
when I was pulling the wagon with stuff that he had bought. Okay, and we're coming down the street on Canal Street, and this person, I don't know whether a woman or who she was, screamed something about the baby being born. And my father took running, and I took running behind him. But what happened was the wagon turned over, and he come out and beat the hell out of me.
No.
Yeah, he just whipped me, but, for turning the wagon over. He says, why should I run? He's the only one who can run.
Yeah, another thing I remembered right there, on that Canal Street, and there was a couple doors down, a colored family lived by the name of Johnson. They had a set of twins. And they also had a grandmother. I don't think it was grandma, I think it was the mother. To me, it was old, And they had a goat. Not a cart, a goat. And we all loved to play with the goat. And one of those boys got nipped by the goat. And he said, damn. And Big Mouth Frank told on him. And his father put soap in his mouth and everything.
Okay.
Because that was a curse word. And then at that time, Joe had some buddies named San Marino, a guy named Proctor, San Marino, and a guy named Evil. They robbed a place and they shot somebody and killed them.
Oh my God.
Remember?
You weren't anywhere around
Oh,
then.
no. Well, I even had it in the newspaper. I gave it to Sam, my stepbrother. I don't know what happened to it going there. But anyhow, it was a hell of a thing. And they all went to the chair.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they all went to the chair. Not like today. Wait 10
They went to
years.
the chair, period, real quick.
Okay, let's get back to Chicago. Your mother's died.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
Well, what happened then, we had, there was a big argument between Catherine and my father. And Anna and Jimmy, the whole bunch of them, making such a scene that Aunt Catherine felt for the children. So she told Jimmy and Anna to move. And they went to a place called Polk Street, which was down the street down there. So we would all stay there. And then my father met this woman named Agnes Farrell, who had a store on Polk Street, which wasn't too far. And he kind of liked her. And she had about 6 kids.
She was a widow?
4 times over.
I see.
Yeah. And she had about 6 kids, and she said, man, my kids always grown, Sam was about 20, wasn't he, 20? And Victoria was so much. So they finally got together. Then Romeo said he couldn't find a job because he couldn't make whiskey and all like that. So he was going to give all the children, Leonard, I think he was going to give to, what? Leonard was going to Frank, Joe was going to Joe, the other Joe, and Gracie was going to Claire. And I said, what about me? Johnny was going to Jimmy and Anna. I said, what about me? Huh? No. Nobody wanted me. Can you imagine?
Did you know that you were being possibly...
I found this out from my aunt, Aunt Catherine, and Aunt Anna, because I used to see her.
Okay. Well, why didn't he do that then?
Well, he got remorseful.
As well he should.
Yeah, and then he said that he may not see his children anymore. So he decided he wanted to put them with the sisters in this orphanage, like St. Mary's Home and Training School is what the name of it was.
A lot of juveniles like that, too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. In fact, they had factories that made shoes, license plates, and all that.
I thought you didn't go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is
And that one, that was in 1924, in March, 1924. You see, Mother died in December in 1923. And in March, which is 3 months, we were in that orphanage. But
Which is in Chicago.
Yeah, stood
And this is St.
they had to go,
St. Mary's.
Yeah,
St.
St.
Mary's is located in Des Plaines, Illinois.
It still is,
Suburb.
because I donate to them and all. So anyhow, work. I can't afford it. I don't. So
You mean the orphanage took him to court?
No, the welfare.
The welfare fee.
Right.
The state, the
juvenile
city,
court.
whatever.
So the judge says, well, you have to pay $4 a month for each child. See? So they committed this. Now, instead of sending, at that time there was a big wall in between the girls and the boys. So they're all separated. Of course, John, Joe, myself, and Leonard were here, and we see our sister maybe once a week.
I used to see in church.
Yeah, once a week or something like that. We'd see her. You could eat.
What did you guys think about this change in your life?
Well, actually, we cried a great deal because of the fact where was my father. We didn't know what had happened.
They didn't tell you.
Oh, no, didn't say nothing that your father had gone to Washington with this woman. We didn't know it. He's gone. Nobody knows.
Oh,
That's what
but I knew.
Well, I don't know.
I'd come and visit, and she
Yeah.
would tell us what a bum my father was, and with that woman he run away with, because Aunt Catherine really loved us. I mean, she loved her sister's kids. She loved us so much, and she would take
She's a
us
hard
all
woman.
out.
She didn't take no crap.
But like you say, she ran the show. She was a very strong woman. She reminded me of my daughter.
And then, listen to this. This was shocked me and it hurt me. When the day my mother died that night, Aunt Catherine, right there when my mother was laying there, she said in Italian, God, why did you take this beautiful woman and leave him, a no-good dog?
They didn't like my father.
No, it wasn't your father, your grandfather.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My
The
grandfather.
grandfather, her own father, because he was lazy. In Italy, he would go from relative to relative, eat. And then if you, Aunt Anna told me, he went to this house of one of his children, and they offered him a couple of eggs, and he said, what am I, big belly, what am I, 2 eggs? And he was a dozen eggs. He would eat.
He was a big man.
And you know how he got in the country? He said he was the father of Aunt Anna and her mother. There was about 4 boys. Oh, beautiful creatures. So, he came in as her husband. Now, my father, after my mother died, he wanted to marry Aunt Anna's mother, who was a beautiful little creature, about 5 foot, 4'11", but very pretty and kind and sweet. She's still living, about 98 years old. You know what she said? Like, no, 2 funerals, popular, hot-headed and all that. And that's what she didn't want to marry him.
Was your mother small?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember. She was smaller than my father, who was about 5'6". I would say she was close to 5 foot. You see, but that I remember about her.
Okay, so you're in the orphanage.
And
What
she
are you
was-
doing with yourselves? I mean, are you going to school?
You go to school. You went to school and all like that, and they had you doing work. My job was working out in the fields, cultivating carnations. In Chicago at that time, they had a cardinal by the name of Cardinal Munderline. And every May the 1st, Flower Day or whatever, they would have these carnations. And you go out, not us, but the nuns and what have you would go out and sell them, you see. And at that time, you worked either in the fields there, and you played in a huge yard. I can remember with a high fence, a playground. I asked when I was there was a guy who was there about the same time when I was up there. He said it was about 25 feet high. It was only about 10 feet high. We used to play there, and I used to have a little.
Were the nuns nice to you?
The nuns were captain had a piece of leather with a piece of wire in there. He rolled up and stick in his pocket. He wearing these pants with puttees. You know what a puttee is? Leggings.
Oh, okay.
And these wide boots. And you could see the strap. And that was enough. And then you marched to the refectory. And then you sat on at tables, ate to the table. And the guys, the old ones, sat on this end. And the guys like me, the young ones, and little teeny things, sat on this end. Now they used to do a lot of stew, what we call slumgullion. And by the time it got to you, it was fat. Oh, fat than all these summits. And it wasn't potatoes or nothing. You get it? Now Leonard was a hard-headed dummy. And he tried to run away one time. And they caught him. And he was given 10 whaps on the hand. That's where they hit you on the hand. And he didn't say a word. And I'm crying like a son of a bitch. You see,
It sounds like David Copperfield or Oliver Twist.
Let me tell you something.
You couldn't make Leonard cry.
And then also you'll find in one of those that we had to get permission to have operations for tonsillectomy. And in those days, it was butchery. The blood kept coming in. And one time I walked in the bathroom. This is before the operation. I caught the nurse and the sergeant playing. I didn't know what they were doing, you know what I mean? But I remember that.
Were the other boys nice to you, or did you have trouble with...
They made you box. I'll never forget, Joe was in my corner, and I had this little Italian boy who was my friend named Frankie. He had kinky hair. We had one nigger, two niggers in the whole place. But he had kinky hair, and they used to match us. But Joe used to say, before you go in the ring, Frankie, you don't remember, of course, take a pee. You know, so you relieve yourself, and then you had the gloves like this. I hit my friend. You know, we were fighting. I hit him in the eye and the nose together, you know, and he started crying. And he went to me again. I felt so bad, you know. But then we had to drill. Taught us how to drill with a wooden gun. Right. And we had something like a gazebo, and we'd march around that. And going to dinner, we always marched. They had a band. Remember the band?
Well, that was quite an experience in that home, I'll tell you, because, you know, it's something I'll recall the rest of my life. I recall working as a janitor. I recall working in the shoe factory. Well, and my job, I recall, in the shoe factory was I put the shoe in the
Last.
whatever that thing, and then I would take the sole, put it on there, and put a nail right through the center to hold it there, you know. But at first I would glue it, you know, glue both, and then somebody would take it from me and run a seam on the sole, you know, where the sole comes to the narrow part, sew it on that, and then take it around. But I recall it wasn't sewing the sole on, they would tack it on.
Yeah.
The tacks all the way around. And
Where did these shoes go?
I don't know where they went. Of course they went to
us.
Oh.
I assume they went there.
And there was also places the girls would sew. That's what my sister became proficient.
Oh, is that right?
Sure. She had to do that at the orphanage. And then she, of course, I wasn't an altar boy at that time. No.
Well, how did you feel about this? Did you feel like life had dealt you a bad hand,
We
or?
didn't speak English when we went in.
Oh, really? You spoke Italian?
I spoke Italian until I was around 14, 15 years old.
You see, when I come back, no, but I mean, I didn't speak it
And my stepmother didn't know I could speak Italian. And she'd talk about all of us and my father, and I'd go and tell my father. And my father would raise hell with her, and she wondered how he knew.
Well, I thought you said this woman's name was Gladys or something.
Agnes Barrow Esposito.
Actually, it's Agnes.
She had about 4.
Father.
Barrow Esposito.
Was she a pretty woman?
Well, she was
mean when he met her? I don't
Oh,
remember
yeah,
her as
you have to
being...
remember, she was most likely about 25, 27, married 4 times, owned a store.
Mm-hmm. So you don't remember feeling angry at your dad
No,
at the
scared, more
circumstances or...
afraid, cried.
Well,
Johnny,
she didn't like many of us, but she did like Leonard.
Right.
She did like...
But Johnny was always being in the bed in the orphanage. He doesn't remember his boy.
Mm-hmm.
So they had him in separate sections where they get him up at the middle of the night. See, Joe don't remember that.
Well, I remember John peeing in bed when he came back to Washington and he was
Yeah.
sleeping with you. That's why he used to whip him. That poor was scared to death to go to
Then,
bed.
one time, we got notice that the Aunt Catherine, Frank, Joe, and all of them used to come out and see us. They allowed to see us once a month. And they would bring goodies. It was way out in the country compared, well, there is stuff right far now because, and they would bring us all this candy and stuff. And they brought us some toys. And that's when Johnny traded into toys for one beat-up fire engine. And we beat the shit out of him.
And we haven't forgotten it, have we?
You can't forget it.
What were your sleeping quarters like?
They were dormitories, row after row of little iron cots, see, and big showers, and all exposed, see. Yeah.
How long did you stay there?
We left in, I think it was March of 1927.
That's when Lindbergh flew across.
No, it was in May. He was in May.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah. We came out in March of 1927, and we were out until,
Now, how old was everybody when you came out?
well, I was about 11.
No, you had to be younger than that because I was only 12 when I came out.
I was 11, man. 'Cause
Okay.
I was ready. At the age of 11, you were ready to
Leave?
go into practice more with guns and stuff like that.
Oh.
Training, stuff like
But
that.
anyway, they tagged us and put us on a train.
And I got sick as hell.
And we had tags all over us, and then we came and we were, the train, those days, you were black by the time you got to Washington, D.C. And then Papa, of course.
Papa and hugging us. And
Oh, yeah.
we got in a taxi cab. And then we went from Union Station. They were living down on 11th Street Southwest, 408, I think.
Nothing's down there now. It's all been urban
Right. And
renewal.
then we lived there for about 6 months or so, and then the old lady couldn't stand us no more.
You didn't like her either.
Well, I didn't care too much for her because she had a cat of 9 tails made out of a bicycle tire and cut in strips. You got to remember, she had 6 kids of her own, and when we sat down at the table now, her kids were number 1. Then she had a crippled son named Harry, and she treated him, but us, if we didn't do something real quick, like a little boy never does, we'd get the cat 9 tails. I was riding this goddamn horse, sawhorse, and all of a sudden I whacked right across the back.
Your dad didn't,
He was home. And then, what made me so mad when I was 16, she told him that I had taken a ring when I had. And she found it later. But I had called her a liar, and he made me want me to kiss her, get down on my knees and kiss her knee. Kiss her knee. Kiss that knee.
But the best part of these stories, you lowering your voice.
Right,
Not
yeah.
coming into that thing.
Well, it's picking up. But anyhow, I said, the hell with this. And I decided to run away from home.
Now, how old are
Wait a
we?
minute, you're missing a spot there. Well, you were sent to St. Joseph.
Yeah.
When was that?
When sent to St. Joseph, 1928.
So that was just a year after
So,
that.
because she didn't want you guys.
There were 13 people sitting at the table. My father was making $10 a day, but had a kickback $1 for the union.
Okay, now what was he doing? Back to Rutilia.
Child center and terrazzo and mixing mud and carrying.
All right, now I've heard a lot of different stories about what he worked on and whether it was the Library of Congress floor
He
or...
worked on the Mellon Gallery of Art was his last job. It's called Mellon Gallery of Art. He worked on St. Peter's Church on 2nd and C Street Southeast, because I worked on it with him.
Now, when you say worked on it, was he laying the little pieces of
Well,
mosaic?
you mix that and honey. You mix them in like your concrete, and you spread and trowel and what have you.
Okay.
And then you have this big machine that polishes it. That's
Okay.
what he was troweling and all because his hands were so eaten up because cement and cracked and all. He used to cry, and his knees were hurting quite. And he used to soak them in oil. You say, remember that, don't you?
Yeah, his hands.
Okay, so what happened, where is St. Joseph's, and tell me all about it.
Well, St. Joseph Home and School is at the corner of 25th and Bunker Hill Road, which is in Washington, D.C. Now, at that time, it was strictly boys. And Gracie was sent to St. Vincent's Home and School, which was at 4th and Rhode Island Avenue, northeast. See, both of them are in northeast. And she was up on a hill. It's up on Hills Gone now. And of course, St. Joseph was up there. Now, those sisters were very good, and they had apple trees, and it was a huge thing, but you couldn't go out. But once a year, the Chesapeake and Potomac Telephone Company would take us to Marshall Hall. Once a year, the Elks used to take us to Glen Echo, you see. But Joe wasn't with us, you see. And the sisters were real nice, and they tried to help you, and if you became very good, like I did, in spelling, you had an opportunity to go to Notre Dame or one of the higher schools, you see. And if you weren't, across the road down there about 5 miles or 2 miles, you could see the National Training School. That's where you would go, see. But the sisters, like I say, taught you real well. They gave you plenty of clothes and all. It was so freedom. See.
How long were you there?
We were there until about 2 years.
Now, everybody was there but Daddy?
And that's right, until John used to be very mean and all. He slapped his sister. Well, that's a bad thing. You know, in those days it was sacrilege. You get the popcorn, you know.
Now, when you were there, were you getting visited by your
Oh,
dad
yes,
and
my
stuff?
father. You see that picture with Dawn? My father would come
Yeah.
out there every week. We had movies out there. One time it was bad, and the movie that was on, I never forgot it. Then Ramon,
Mm-hmm.
and I never did see it.
Hmm.
Isn't that something? Remember that? But I did see the other one.
Okay, well, what were you doing at this time while they were in St.
Running
Joseph?
around with girls.
Yeah, he was. He was working at different jobs.
At 14 or 13?
Well, I was,
He was about 16.
you know, I worked all my life. When I came out of the home, I hustled papers on a corner. I used to go down, I used to run from,
For the nigger?
I'm selling papers on my arms.
Yeah,
I am
for
so.
that nigger.
In those days, they had a bunch of bootleggers on Pennsylvania Avenue. Between 6th,
system racks.
Well, I didn't have the honor system that too much. They had stores would buy them and things like that. And they had a few that was the rack. The first one I did, Frank, was with the Washington News. And then I went with Mr. Holtzhoff.
Herzog. Herzog, I remember.
Herzog, Holtzhoff, something like
Yeah,
that.
because you went for his funeral to his daughter.
And he had a Chevrolet Touring, I'll never forget it. And I'd get up early in the morning
3 o'clock.
and have to get rid of these papers. Some were deliveries, some were to stores, and things like that. Then every Saturday, I used to have to insert the paper, the Sunday paper.
The Road Review section, the comics.
And I made $8 a week.
That's not bad.
And my father got $7.50 of that. And it wasn't that
Now, we're still living on 11th Street.
yeah. And it was a question that he needed the money. That was all it was. You didn't
The
mind.
rent was $25 a month.
You didn't mind handing it over.
Mrs. Johnson had the house. It was 3 stories tall. She had an electric automobile that she used to drive down.
Now, what do you mean, you rented this house?
Pop rented the house.
Okay, this is what I want to know. I want you to tell me what you remember about how this house looked and the neighborhood around it.
Well, we had a porch. It was a wooden house, and it was very drafty. The kitchen was on a dirt floor, and the sink did not have, it had water, just cold water. But upstairs you had cold and hot water, but you had what we used to call a one-arm bandit. You light the gas, and there was a coil in there to heat the water, and we'd take a bath. Remember? And there was a tub up there. All 3 of us, the first floor, you had a huge room. That was the dining room. We used the dining room. They had a big sideboard on the left, and then we had a big pot-bellied stove. And up there we had a grill, where the heat would rise and go up to the second, but never reach the 3rd floor where Frankie and Johnny slept, you see. But we slept up there. But on the right of the stove was this living room with this QRS piano, player piano. And Louis, my stepbrother, Agnes' son, who was a thief and what have you, but he had talent for playing the piano. He had broken fingers or something like that, but it was good. So the second floor had, the front of the house had where Joe and Lois slept, remember? And I had this little teeny room on the side of that where I slept with John. See?
Comes on second floor.
Yeah, you were on the second floor. There was a toilet right
By the bedroom.
Right.
You had to come through the bedroom.
You see, your mother Joe slept there, and I'll never forget we gave her hell because she didn't have his white shirt ready. But you know how much I used to care for her, other than my girlfriend. Anyhow, in the top floor, it was like a garret. And little windows about as big and all, but it was very, very cool. And you could, every night, you hear the rats.
Oh, gosh.
Right, Joe? Every night. And
Where was everybody sleeping? I've seen, where are all these people? Where's Uncle Leonard?
The Leonard slept in this room by the toilet. Joe slept with his wife there. Leonard got married at 18 or 19, you know. And he left soon.
I see.
Say,
You were living on 9th Street.
and I and Gracie and Johnny slept upstairs there. See?
Gracie had the top floor.
Yeah.
Well, you just said you were by the bathroom with Uncle John.
Leonard was by the
Oh, okay.
See? I was by Joe's. There's Joe's bedroom here, and over here was a little teeny room that I used to come and sneak here, climb up the banister here, porch, you know, would shimmy up the porch and get in. And one day, Father would say, as I tried to sneak in, you were supposed to be here by 7 o'clock.
7.
7 o'clock. It doesn't mean we went to bed then, but we had to be there.
Okay, when you walked out your front door, what do you see?
Well, you had a streetcar that ran in front of the house. You walked down the steps. Over here on the right was a chrysanthemum bush. Next door was a high-class stone called the Edith Apartments. There were 4 apartments. You could sit on your front porch and look into the one apartment there.
Saw the bay windows back there.
Yeah, and see, there was 2 apartments down, 2 apartments. But this woman, Chris Gepke's, Flora was her name. She lived there. That's where my father
He used to work for me.
and I went to work as a tinsmith, cutting sheet metal and stuff like that.
Well, who was this banana guy?
The banana guy were what we used to call kabadis or friends or something. Now,
Ronnie is the guy that baptizes you, your
well,
godfather.
no, my godfather and godmother was altogether different. They were called shakas. And the reason they never
Sam
got along.
married one of them, didn't
Yeah, Sam married one named Grace.
Shaka.
And she, he carried him to his death. That old bitch. Anyhow, in front of the house ran a streetcar. And they went to Ladroit. It was a section of Ladroit Park, which was Florida Avenue, was actually city line at that time. See, and it went down to the wharves, was the other thing. It went down to where the Wilson line, at that time it was a place called
How far were you away from the wharves?
Oh, God. About 2 or 3 blocks, yeah. Yeah, about early.
Because the corner was E Street.
East Street,
And then
11th and E.
one more block, and then
One block,
it was
E, between E and F was this huge ice warehouse known as,
you're talking about the terminal.
terminal warehouse. They made ice in there, they had storage and all like that.
They also had Breyer's ice cream.
No, Breyer's ice cream was in the alley. So anyhow, you go a little further, there's a slaughterhouse there. And then L.S. Briggs. Do you remember Briggs?
Kind of employees to
Oh,
work
wait a
for.
minute. Now, before you get to L.S. Briggs, we were there. We were there before L.S. Briggs. We
Right.
were talking about this person with the electric car. They had the home on that
No,
corner.
that was Dr. White.
I know, but that's right.
Well, Miss Johnson, who had ours, lived on Virginia Avenue by the park over there.
I know, but Dr. White lived in a corner. That's
Right.
That's where
Dr. White,
that was where
Briggs went. Right. Yeah, but the woman with the electric car, who was our landlady, lived down there on Virginia Avenue and about 6th Street.
Well, the people that lived.
She had a beautiful mansion, and she used to wear hats with a pin in them.
The people lived Dr. White's place. They had an electric car too.
But they had all kinds of high wall, stone wall, and beautiful.
Then Briggs came in, and then these meat places came in, and it became commercial year after year. And when we lived there, it was almost entirely commercial. The streetcars were gone.
What happened to the banana guy?
Well, they used to live in the next block.
Now, are these vendors who come
Yeah, they
around
come around with a push cart. They sell the bananas.
right on your street?
I
I played with the guy's son
Yeah. In fact,
on 9th Street. I remember playing with him on 9th Street.
yeah, Hunsey, little Hunsey, and big Hunsey.
Did you have vendors or people that come around like to sharpen knives or fix umbrellas?
Oh, yeah.
Scissor shop, knife shop.
Big wheel.
Come down the street.
In back of our house,
Well,
there was an old abandoned school called the Potomac School. And we used to go in there and play and all like that, cocking all over the place. But we used to play, you remember that? But
And I believe that is the end of the tape. I hope you enjoyed. Again, please like and subscribe.